Okay. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Aaron. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Doing good. Very good. Thank you.
Good, good. So this week we agreed to discuss some of the topics that came about last week. And the notion, I think we agreed that we had to talk about or share our ideas on the notion of intimacy
Hmm.
and how we can maybe explore this in this virtual realm in this project. So yeah, I did some slides and I will share them with you, and then we can talk about them and discuss, and maybe you can tell me what you've done.
That sounds great. Perfect.
All right. So I decided um, to come up with to to make a title for myself, like to frame my ideas and my thoughts. So unlike other I don't know, exhibitions or projects that the title comes possibly the last thing.
Mm.
So first you have the team, and then you create the work or you discuss the work. Then the title organically comes out from that work. However, I this time I like started the other way around. So I was like trying to come up with a title, and the first thing that came to my mind is like structures of virtual intimacy. These are like quick notes that I had done. So if they look like hieroglyphs, I apologize. But
That's fair. That's fair.
they're like yeah, this is at least I understand them, but
Encrypted.
um, so but I will be narrating. um so and like another title would have been like institutions for post intimacy or systems for post intimacy. And then I looked up all the synonyms for intimacy,
Mm.
and like closeness, togetherness, affinity, rapport, attachment, familiarity, confidentiality, fondness, and affection. And I also looked at the antonyms, meaning the opposite, and disagreement and incompatibility
Mm.
um, also popped up. But this was like brainstorming and just putting things on paper. And another title was which I liked, since I work with sculpture, a new nostalgia towards the physical.
Mm.
And then I started thinking of okay, how could this could I manifest a work with this title, because I was quite happy, or at least at that point I was interested in that. Like why nostalgia? Why? Because nostalgia is usually something that's long gone and something in the past. But this situation we're in is uh, is relatively recent, and we are already almost nostalgic um, of our past experiences and the possibilities.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, I try to go right into it, and what would I make with this, or how would this sculpture manifest in this situation? And the first thing that came to mind is like a, a a structure of like two empty chairs. It's on the left hand side, like opposing each other, and then I created like a symbol for it. It's like a trident that's upside down.
It is. That's cool.
Um, uh, like this is the way I usually sketch. I do like really break down the things into very linear images. so that I can communicate even with myself, for me to remember, but I can communicate what I've done. And then on the other side, the next thought was like, it was more in line with the work I do, with the installations or sculptures that I do. And it was like a double catapult for people, shooting people apart.
I like that. That's amazing.
So it was, you know, I tend to use these absurd notions, and as absurd as it looks here on paper or on screen, it would be more amusing to see this idea in the world. And then I was like, okay, I'm clearly interested in duality.
Right. Nice.
That this situation brings about. I mean, there are a lot of ways to explain or to see the term duality, but I saw this as like two objects who or that can never meet, or that couldn't meet, and they are opposing. So I kept on sketching and writing, and it's like, okay, the situation is between the individual and the other individual, because the term the other has a lot of psychological implications and sociological and political implications.
Right.
And I didn't research the term to its fullest, so I'm leaving it as the other individual. And this is like a sketch of these two. This is like what everyone is right now, or it's like two entities on their laptop screens, and looking at each other, and this distance between them is almost infinite.
That's funny.
So these are like yeah, these are the sketches that I do, and these keep me thinking. And then another title popped up: Ideas of Intimacy in Virtual Space, or Infinite Space, as we were discussing in our previous talks. I start off my projects playing with words, or playing around words. I used to do text-based work, not really anymore, but this is also how I brainstorm, and how I get my ideas together. So this is another title here in the square, in the box. Are we there yet, or are we here yet? And it's like, it's also implying this this need for people meeting in physical space, as since here or there means or implies a physical space. And then I was like, okay, this is like, I thought of the term online and life. And I played around with the letters, or with the words in just one line, and mashing up the words. So I started on with online life, then one life online, then another, like this could be another title, on life online. Then there is lifeline online, and then life online, and then I concluded with life dash on dash line, life online. And this triggered something else in my mind. It's like this lifeline, and it's hanging by the line, and it's online. So I ended up with this, with the same catapult.
I love the catapult. Yeah.
And it is, imagine these 2 planks or 3 planks of wood, and on the top there's like this seat for 2 individuals, and they are held together by this by this little line or string. And if the string is cut, then the 2 are projected outwards. I don't know if you can figure out. Do you understand the diagram?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's so good. That's so good.
And yeah, so I said, okay, this is I think this is enough for me to start this to continue this conversation with, because some things led me to this online, and then this online thing, or the idea went to an actual line, a string, a rope, and then I combined it with the other idea that I had before of the opposing catapults. So yeah, that's it was quite fun to try and think around these lines. Pun not intended.
That's good.
This like could easily be something that I would be happy working with, or happy discussing with you. Yeah, we can continue with your thoughts on the subject.
Before can you go back maybe like 2 or 3 slides to where you had the 2 like faces? Yeah, what I love about this drawing too is like the drawing that you have in the middle there, like the vagueness of those lines, like those remind me of laptops, they remind me of the catapults, and they remind me of the chairs all at the same time, you know, like the format of just that, which I think is really funny, which makes me almost think about like the idea of like the catapults are, I think, such a hilarious, amazing composition. I love that idea. But it also makes me think about like the hinging of like the screen coming up too, and like the screen is like this weird like catapult that like shoots you out as well, you know, like there's a really great like not redundancy but like echo, I guess, of how everything works off of each other in that, you know, which I think is really cool.
I didn't see that. Now I see it.
It's so cool. I love how like sometimes when things get so boiled down to just a line, all of a sudden it's like you were saying earlier, it just like becomes like a hieroglyph to something else, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you're seeing that, because I didn't notice it. So wow, okay.
And you captured the expressions very well, by the way.
No, we're smiling a bit more though.
That's hilarious. I love it. Okay, that's really cool. Okay, so I should warn you that on my side for presenting, mine is a lot more abstract, and I'm just going to present conceptually things I've been thinking about when we're thinking about the idea of intimacy. I kind of returned back to this as a starting point because this is where I think I like at least made a little bit of progress for myself and my understanding of where we were with the idea of this is object, non-object, intimate and non-intimate, or kind of like when you were looking at like antonyms for intimacy as well, like, you know, like distant or alien is the only things that I came up with. I probably should have just looked that up actually. But, you know, like, so one thing I noticed immediately with you were talking about, I think you said post-intimacy, which I think is a really fascinating thing to think about, because we also like arguably in this like post-truth world now, which is like words that I never thought that we would have together in the same sentence. But, you know, like the idea that we have these like extensions in the world and we kind of just make sense of what they are and we compile them by ourselves. I've been listening to or thinking about this Canadian philosopher, Marshall McLuhan, and he was talking about the idea of technology and talking about media. And his kind of argument was that every single piece of technology that we make is just an extension of ourselves for others. So it's like, you know, a telephone is just an extension of what our ear is to somebody else. You know, a telescope as a way for us to extend our sight into the world, you know, communications, radio, internet, all of that's an extension for us to be able to communicate with others. So I started thinking about the interesting concepts of like thinking about the technological broadcast, like trying to reach out to others through the idea of intimacy and trying to kind of filter it through that. And then this is going to start getting really abstract, but along the same time I was like listening to this, I found out about this phenomenon called Fata Morgana. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's the idea that at sea, if cold air and warm air settle at the right way, it produces this mirage to where you look out at the distance and things actually appear like they're floating on the horizon as opposed to actually sitting on the horizon. It's just basically the air is like bending and the light is bending in a way that it shouldn't be. So your eyes kind of like break in a way. They almost like glitch in a really strange, interesting, beautiful way, which I didn't know about. And this is like so abstract, but like this kind of like for me started thinking about the idea of like almost when you were talking about the like the catapult distance of like one to the other, and then not really being able to see or think about that correctly somehow. So I started thinking about that and just kind of thinking about, you know, the distance between things, and, you know, like again, like the idea of between intimate and distant and alien, like the furthest reaching things out in the world and then the closest intimate things together. And then also I was thinking about, you know, like how we like think about the possibility of assembling things and putting things together in an intimate setting, and kind of historically what that's looked like before. And I was remembering the idea of like Dutch still life painting, you know, especially in like the 15th and 16th century. And people like Van Huysum, who, you know, it's like all of these paintings are incredible and they're so meticulously painted. But when you go back and look at them, you realize that like all of these flowers never really bloomed at the same time of year. So like they're like a fiction, like they're actually like, you know, he'll paint one flower and he'll stick it in the vase, like, you know, in a painting, but it's like they couldn't have ever actually all been together. So like it looks completely real, but it's actually fiction, you know, it's like it's impossible. So it's like this impossible bouquet. And so I started thinking about the idea of, you know, in our conversations and our idea of trying to think about intimacy, that like in a way we're kind of almost doing this, we're assembling some like impossible still life together in a way, or if there's like a not a collision, but like this unification of like language and project and process that kind of gets smushed together in some format. And like I like the idea of like, I don't know, like the still life or the bouquet being like a metaphor for something else, you know? So for instance, like if we thought about using your format of like the catapult or something coming in, like that's kind of like our vase of information that comes in, and that's this thing that holds all of this stuff together, and all of these things that we assemble in there are kind of this like collective way of assembling it into something in the same way. Like they come from different times, they come from different spaces, but they all have a meeting place, and they all have this kind of like vessel that like hold all of that information together, whether that's a video or whether that's an object that we make, whether if it's an image of an object that we make, et cetera, et cetera. So like thinking in relationship to the stuff that you talked about, and then thinking in relationship to the stuff that I've been thinking about this week, I think that there could be like this really interesting way of us building some of the things that you've talked about and created, like some of your sketches, and figuring out, I don't know, like maybe figuring out a medium or a format to where all of these things can coexist. Like I could digitally make this catapult device as an animation, and we can use that as things to like launch things away from and make videos with it. We could use it more as a conceptual device. We could actually build it physically and figure out a way to like bring that into a digital landscape and work with that as well. I don't know, I like the idea of like this recognition, kind of like that still life painting, that it's like all of these things are impossible and we're putting them together in this time and space, but like because we know that from the beginning, it becomes exciting and it's not like a limit.
Yeah, I think what this kind of mashup could actually work.
Yeah.
Like even though we're thinking of relatively different things,
Yeah.
mashing up these two ideas we had
Yeah.
could still make sense because they're still on the same wavelength and on the same ideas. So yeah, I think yeah, Kyle, I think we can continue discussing it next week or
Yeah.
in the coming days.